So yeah, Paul Reilly here, and today I'm joined in the programme with Professor Lawrence Bellamy from Sunderland University. He's an expert in retail, and I'm also joined by Mark Pilgrim, who is the CEO of Chester Zoo, and we also have a pub owner in Yorkshire who is Loz Shirley. How you doing, guys?
Good. All good, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just get into it. So starting with yourself, Mark, obviously Chester Zoo, all zoos in England have been given the go-ahead to open from next Monday, and there's been a lot of sort of anxiety of where they'll end up in the future due to them being closed, not making money. So is it a bit of a relief, or is it still not going to make a difference? What's your take on it?
Hey, it's a bit of both. So it's a massive relief this morning, I have to say. Obviously, we've been closed since the 21st of March. 97% of our income as a charity comes in through our visitors, so pretty much almost zero income since then, and massive overheads, massive costs, because clearly while we've furloughed half the staff who are the visiting facing staff, a lot of the staff here are just looking after the animals in the collection and clearly can't be furloughed. So actually being open on Monday, all the preparations are done, and it's a massive relief, because it feels like we've got control back in our own hands. But we've still got a massive hole in our finances, and with reduced numbers, it's still going to be a challenge financially going forward.
Do you expect a large number of people to go back on Monday, as in visitors, or do you think it'll be relatively quiet?
Well, I think that we're going to have to control it very strictly. So it's going to be online bookings only to control numbers, because otherwise it wouldn't work. So absolutely, people need to be patient with us. We're going to have to do pre-bookings only and restrict the numbers coming through. So we're going to start off very small in terms of numbers and build up gradually as time goes on, and just see how to manage it in a sensible and safe way to give people confidence.
Yeah, and Lawrence, you can probably give some sort of input in this in terms of the retail as a whole. A lot of sites such as Chester Zoo, which was Mark saying, that rely heavily on people coming in and visiting, buying things and spending money. So just how much of a hard hit has the industry taken from the coronavirus pandemic?
I mean, obviously, Chester Zoo is one of the leading attractions in the country, and it's very well established and very well known. I think if you're looking at retail specifically, you'll find that those firms which were in the retail sector and already struggling, this was pretty much finished one or two of those off, and has done. And it's a long road to recovery. If you look at something like, of course, Chester Zoo is seasonal. Retail seasonal as well, to a certain extent, depending on which part of the sector you're in. And at the moment, you've got a real challenge for those organisations who have excess stock from previous season. They might be offering up that cheap to try and move it quickly. That's cut the margins, but there's still a lot of lack of confidence about going shopping. The footfall's going to be down. So it really will be a tough recovery from this, and something which the biggest single thing that has to exist is absolute confidence. And hearing Mark talk there, he's talking about precautions he's taking. It's essential for retail all over to show the public, to show the visitors that they will be safe if they come.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of shops, not just the zoo, but a lot of shops on the high street, they'll have to limit the amount of people they can have in their stores, and that just sort of automatically says to me that they might not be making enough money to cover running costs. Is that something that should be considered? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the retail sector has got to think very carefully about its staffing levels and opening hours, particularly. If you open for longer hours, you're just spreading the money across more hours, for example, and raising your overheads accordingly. But it's not just in the shop. Obviously, you've got to do your risk assessment and manage your shop as best you can. But it's also the whole thing about making the journey using public transport, the circulation areas which there are within the town centre and within the shopping malls. It's also about the things that you usually do when you go shopping too. You go for a coffee, have a bite to eat perhaps. The whole package needs to be put together. And this is why retailers are working together up and down the country to try and overcome those sorts of barriers and build that confidence back in for the consumer.
Yeah, and I'll just head over to you, Loz. So obviously you're in a different sector to to Mark. You're in the hospitality. You own a couple of pubs, so do you feel like sort of being kept in the dark of where things might open up for you guys and take a new direction, or do you think there is a clear guidance? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think firstly, be a clear direction and stop with sending out mixed messages from the government about the date of when we can and when we can't open is one of the paramount things that needs to come out. They keep changing the dates, raising people's hopes, and every pub around the country, is different. Going back to a bit before, you said that I was in Yorkshire for 14 years, but back on Merseyside now, and both pubs that I have are in a totally different types of places. So you've got one that's got a large beer garden and one that's got none. So it's, they're going through and they're saying things like, we can open certain establishments, but only if the space is big enough and it's got a bigger garden. So, do the other people have to start waiting? And one of the things I think will help if we are going to go lead, it's gone from 22nd of June, given a date like this week to raise people's hopes, which was never going to happen. Logistically, it just couldn't. Because the way that people approach the pub is not like them going to a shop or when they go to the supermarket, because people can be patient and they can queue up and wait in the 2-meter guidelines, social distancing. But we all know in the pub industry, when people go to the pub, they act in a totally different manner. So one of the big things that they need to look at first is the 2-meter social distancing. Reducing it to 1 will help massively. And I think it's happening in most of the places around Europe anyway. But I don't know why they're not already looking into doing that, so that people can start measuring up and seeing what the capacities are going to be able to be like. And one of the other things that councils need to start looking at is the deregulation of outside spacing, so that I know they're doing it in Liverpool and a couple of areas, Bold Street and Castle Street. When I lived in Harrogate, there's plenty of places around there they could do it. Councils need to start looking at to get the confidence out in the people to come back out onto the high street by deregulating some of these outside areas, so they can create a cafe culture to bring the confidence out, which not also helps the pub industry or the bar industry or hospitality, but also it ties in with the retail sector. Because if people are coming out on the high street and they've got places to eat and stuff like that, or they've got places to drink with that cafe culture, then they're more likely to go out and support the shops in the area. So the deregulation and the social distancing meter is critical at the minute. But, there's other things that, we need to, like yesterday, I ordered some hand sanitizer stations because we're trying to get ahead of the game before the actual date comes, because we know that when that secure date comes out, that every man and his dog's going to want to order certain products. So they're going to want to get these PPEs and your sanitizers and all this, but then everybody's going to want them at the same time. And, we've also got to look at a lot of the PPE needs to go to the front line to protect them. So what are we going to do? A certain amount of that going to be suddenly kept back for the pub industry or the hospitality industry to look after them so that they can open as well. There's no guidance about it, and we're trying to make plans, but we can't make a plan to anything at all, because apart from the fact they keep changing the dates all the time, there's nothing to say that what we would need to be able to open.
And Mark, what was your sort of feelings about government guidance? I know you've got the green light now, but up until then, did you feel there was sort of a lot of uncertainty, a lack of communication? And also, are you quite surprised about, because obviously the UK's coronavirus infection and death rate that speaks for itself. It's hit us very hard. So are you quite surprised that we're taking this direction quite soon? So soon?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, clearly all of us want this to be done as safely as possible, and kind of that goes without saying, really. But I think that if we look at what's happening elsewhere, we've now got, if I take the zoo, for example, we've got 128 acres of outdoor space. All the indoor areas will be closed. So we know that we can perfectly adequately, we're used to managing large crowds. And I have to say, kind of like, exactly like, we also had little time to prepare, but actually we were fortunate in that we were hoping for a date a few weeks ago. So all of the lines on the ground, all of our footprints, and all of our one-way systems were put in about 3 weeks ago in preparation. So that's really fortunate. So apart from a really good clear out and a good clean up ready to go on Monday, we're pretty much there. And I do think that actually kind of like, yeah, it is very much, it was a big surprise. So the zoos were never actually told to close. We closed voluntarily on 21st of March. And then it wasn't until last Sunday that actually we became on the list of organisations that couldn't open. So from going on the list on the Sunday and kind of being told we couldn't open, you're right. I welcome it very much. Don't get me wrong, but surely it certainly is sort of very very little time to prepare for everybody.
And sorry, Lawrence, how do you feel it will take? How long do you think it will sort of take until the UK retail industry is relatively strong again? Do you think that will take a while, or do you think in the next 6 months or so we could maybe turn things around?
I think what you will see, notwithstanding any significant changes in the infection rates, and my view is that probably responses could be localised, and that would be much more helpful. Is that there will be a bit of a recovery based on some latent demands, some customers wanting to get back in there, take advantage of some of the bargains, the excess stock, and then it'll start to settle again. You've got to remember that in terms of online trading, we probably had about 5 years of change within 2 or 3 months regard to people's habits, and some people will stick with those habits. So it's going to be a tough time on the high streets going forward, absolutely. And it's all part of the package. Retail is not just about the shop. It's got to have a good product. It's got to have a great service, but it's also about the environment where you go shopping and the other things you do where you're there as well. So Loz was talking about the positioning people going for drink, having something to eat, and that sort of thing, and the pub environment. Well, it's wrapped in with that cafe culture, pub culture, the day out, the fuller experience. And until we reach that level of confidence that that's been well managed, then you're going to see those people who are more vulnerable and a little more cautious staying away. In addition, you've got a real concern now about recession and people's ability to spend. So we've got some significant projections about unemployment rates in the future, and you've got a time limit on furlough as well, which is a big concern. That's going to knock people's spending power. No argument on that front. That will be very, very difficult, and it will be essential to get people back into work and for the economy to recover before there's any secondary cover in those sectors which rely on that expenditure. And again, a lot of it's about confidence.
Yeah. And Loz, if you've sort of taken a look into how some of the European restaurants and bars are going about their business now, how they're sort of operating and running their operations, have you sort of looked into that, what they're doing?
It's not something that I've looked into, but whenever we go away, it's always something that it's like you're always educating yourself whenever you go to see how you can always switch your business, because you can never stay in the same model and keep progressing over the years, like by sticking to that same model. So whenever you go away, you're always picking up on ideas and how people do things, whether it's from serving dishes to the type of service and how they go about their service or whatever. And, as I say, tying back in with the retail industry, it's going to be difficult for the high street to get back on its feet for shops and stuff without the glue in between, the people to make that people have that day out that they're used to from before, and building up the confidence and getting people back out. And as you said, they've got into a habit now of doing things in a certain way. They're ordering things online, or they're getting takeaway beers, or clothes are coming from your Amazons and stuff like that. And a lot of people will have got so used to it, they're quite comfortable with that, and they will be afraid to go back out and to build that confidence up. I think one of the things that we did in the pub that we've got just down the street there, this is more of a little local community like watering hole more, and we're going to have difficulty with the spacing in here. We think we're probably going to get about 20 in here, if that. But the one that we've got down the road there, it's got like a bigger outside area. We've got a car park we can potentially use or whatever with the garden and an outside front. We've placed an outdoor it's a Dutch chip van there, so it's building up the confidence of people to come out and families to go for a walk and pick some chips up in the air and in an outdoor zone, so they feel safe. And you can see that it's helped to bring these people out and the high street buzzing a little bit more. So I think it's an early indication for me that these type of things need to be, accepted, or, as I mentioned before, the deregulation of outside space to build up, to get these people back out there again.
Yeah. And Mark, you're obviously talking about the advantage outdoor space because that's usually how a zoo will operate. But see, like the sort of indoor closures you have, like a penguin aquarium, things like that, will they all be closed off? Or?
Yeah, for the time being, they're all remaining closed. So we just do the outside base. And again, it is back to that, exactly right, kind of just bringing in small numbers, restricting numbers, getting people confident, getting people to feel that they actually can safely go out and have the confidence to do all of those things. Really important. And I think if we look across what's happening on continental Europe, where for example, zoos have been open for a few weeks now, we've seen it working incredibly well. People actually are really appreciating the fact they can go out somewhere in public that's outdoor space, but is well managed and feel completely secure about that. And also kind of we've seen that as the lockdown measures have eased in shopping and bars overseas, we're not seeing any signs of second spike in those countries. So I think, as long as we do it well and do it carefully, we can do it perfectly safely.
Yeah. And Lawrence, do you think it will take will it take to get a vaccine to sort of get back to normality, or will it maybe in the few months will it?
I mean, I wouldn't like to speculate on the result, whether it's herd immunity or vaccines, because it's not my particular field. But I mean, one thing that comes through is about behaviour, and it's about individual behaviour. And Mark made the point about how the measures in place and how people respond. Now, people have been conditioned to that in a consumer context through, for example, their supermarket experiences throughout this. There are certain protocols in place and they're following them. Now, if people get used to following those protocols, then society can start to operate more effectively across. If people are not prepared to follow those protocols, or businesses can't operate with certain protocols in place effectively, and therefore haven't got that license to operate, then that's when the problems could occur, and there could be further intervention, which is the biggest concern about the restrictions placed. So I think normality is all a relative position. I think society will continue to function in a slightly adjusted way going forward. And I'm hoping that there will be a permanent and substantial solution in the future. But if not, we're going to have to manage with it and get on and change the way we operate. And that means, unfortunately, there will be winners and there'll be losers in this. And the winners are the people who can adapt and work within that, and the losers are the ones who find their business model is impossible to operate within those restrictions.
Yeah, I've seen a few surveys so far in the past couple of months that a number of people have sort of reduced and think about more in the way they spend. Do you think that will be a big factor in going forward when people are shopping?
Yeah, I think that there could be, and of course time will tell, some significant changes in the way that people live their lives, perhaps. So, for example, the interest in rural residences has gone up. The interest in working from home on a more permanent basis has gone up, and people probably aren't missing the commute on a daily basis as much as they thought they may. So those types of things are going to have an impact on how society operates. I mean, even your grannies doing online shopping now. It's sort of become part of the norm to do those bits and pieces, and that will stick with us. That will stick with us and change the way we operate. There's even been a green interest growing as well in terms of the environment, and you've seen the reports, I'm sure, about the impacts of lockdown on things such as emissions, and that's something which really sticks with people and people can relate to, perhaps. So I think some permanently changed habits a shift in society on that basis is absolutely likely to occur. And in terms of getting through this and flourishing, then we need to make sure that we're really adapting to that new way.
Yeah, and Loz, if the government turned round and said in the next couple of weeks or the start of next month that all beer gardens can open, would you be? Do you think you'd be ready? Would you be confident to make business?
Well, we're planning. We've already put plans in place about a week ago to start getting ahead with the beer garden. But some places will just not. It's quite evident. There's a good proportion of pubs that would just may never open again at all. Some are worried that if they do open, they're not going to be able to cover the costs enough to maintain it. We've got some pub codes that are going over the top with demanding on rents and stuff like that, which is a totally different story in its own. Going back to what Lawrence said, we have to live with this now, and it is about re-education and adapting and adjusting your businesses. And we need to create a different experience for people because it won't be the same as it was before. But going back to the worry within the pub industry and a lot of pubs out there, there is a good help, and there's just been a new site created called the Forum of BritishPubs.com. Now, this site launched on Monday, and these are really people at the forefront that really care about the industry, and they're there to protect and preserve pubs and people that run, supporting pubs in crisis. Because as we say, it's great having a big beer garden and things like that, but even when it comes to the time of having the beer gardens, we're not guaranteed the weather in Britain. So does everybody all pile inside, and then suddenly you've got, let's not go too much into like all the protesting and stuff that's going on around the world where people aren't social distancing, but people will automatically run into a space that's probably not as big as the garden was because they've got nowhere to go. And that's one of the issues that we have in England because we can't be guaranteed the weather. We might get 5 days of it, and then the next couple of days, it's pouring down. So you can't rota for that, and then you're messing the staff around, or you're incurring huge costs with no business there. And there's all, going back to the question, we could all be ready for it, and we can go through. We've got an idea how shops are going because we've visited shops that are doing social distancing. But as we say, in the hospitality and catering or the pub segment, people behave in a totally different manner. So, until we get to that point of how are people, we have to re-educate the people, or would they have already been slightly re-educated in their minds before they've come back into the pub industry? Or once they've had that first or second beer, everybody behaves slightly differently anyway. But as I say, going back there, that there is a lot of worry. We've got you've got certain pubs like this one here, the Lake. It's probably got a capacity of probably about 150 people. But if you do the social distancing marking out on how people are going to be, it's going to be, you're going to look at about 20 people getting in here, and this type of pub wouldn't be able to afford to open, where another pub that I have probably could. So going back there, any people in that industry that are worried, do check out the Forum of BritishPubs.com, which launched on Monday, and there'll be a lot of help and support there. There's some good people there with all kinds, from insurances to rents to government guidelines to how you can go about reopening your pub. There's everything there that they could possibly need.
Yeah, and Mark, talking about maybe a second wave possibly coming around, like if it did in autumn or so, would you, if your team thought about that and what you would do in terms of preparation? Is that something that's come up, or are you just sort of preparing for right now and then you'll take that as it comes?
Well, I guess, having just found out last night, we're sort of like frantically preparing for Monday, if I'm honest with you. We're not looking too far ahead. But I guess, in terms of looking at those countries, I say, who are a few weeks ahead of us in the easing down measures, no signs of it so far. So I'm pretty optimistic, and because I do think it would be an incredible challenge to actually once things start opening up and people do get confident, it's going to be a whole new challenge to try to lock things back down again. So we need to get it right the first time, in my opinion.
Yeah, do you? I know you were talking about earlier how your staff are sort of trained anyway to deal with large crowds, but did they have to go are they now having to go under new special training to operate in a safe way?
Yeah, we've done some of that actually, and because people. So we're trying to produce people are coming out because they want to get out, have an enjoyable time, but be safe. So at the same time, I'm trying to get that balance right of looking after people, making sure people are doing the right thing, but doing it in a fun way, in a way that people are going to have a great time. So we're talking about 2 meters being how far a tapir can pee at you, and kind of just have fun with the kids in terms of keeping people those distances. Talking about we've got lines on the around the enclosures. People aren't at the barriers, and we're sort of we've got signs up saying, look, hey kids, there's crocodiles beyond this line, keep back behind it. Just trying to keep it as safe as possible, but also fun, because actually people are desperate to get out and actually enjoy themselves as well.
Yeah. Lawrence, will that sort of cost more businesses, more retail shops money the more they have to train up their staff for the next stage of this new life that we're living? Will that cost businesses a bit more, do you think?
I mean, obviously businesses need to make some preparations, and Mark there has talked about some innovative solutions which are making the whole position more tolerable, and whilst keeping it safe, and that's really important. In terms of staff, it's the same for any business. They have to do a risk assessment. They need to look at their working methods in light of that risk assessment to keep the staff and the consumers safe. And the outcomes of that risk assessment have to be shared with those employees to make sure that they're operating in a safe way and with the duty of care for those people who are visiting the shop. So there may be some additional costs, but the biggest cost will be to retail footfall, and that's the big question. What will the footfall be? And it's not just within the shop, as I said, it's the whole operation of the town centre, of the shopping area, and the access and egress from that area, which is really critical. How people come to and how people leave. So it's a massive logistics operation. And whilst you can do a lot to look after your own shop, you also need to be in a position where everyone's working together to look at, with the council, with bid operators, etc., how you can manage that whole shopping environment. And that's the critical point. And overall, yes, that does cost money. It costs money to establish, whether it's signage, demarcations, etc., or whether it's instructions or communication, whether it's people to staff it and make sure that people are being sensible about it and politely requesting to do so. That's all an additional overhead.
Yeah, are you as well predicting, Lawrence, as well, are you predicting that more people will just sort of stick to ordering things online rather than going out and posing themselves as a risk to the virus? Do you think that will just be the new way to shop, is just purely online?
Well, you can see within the UK, which are they're a nation of smartphone users, so instantly you can get online, check the prices, order something pretty quickly. It's so convenient, and the logistics now are so good that you can get a lot of stuff same day delivery even. If your freezer packs up in the morning, your Argos can deliver you one in the afternoon, in the evening. So it's really fantastic now what can be done. And we've seen for a number of years a year-on-year increase of retail spend going towards online as a percentage shift. However, during this period, we've seen a big jump in that. Now, some of that may revert back to high street expenditure, but some of it won't. So we've seen a permanent step change in terms of the shift to online. Some consumers may stick with their fortnightly drop off from the supermarket, or buying stuff for the online, ASOS, Amazon, Primark, etc. Whoever's got the best deals at the time, because they can see what's going on. Other people, of course, will want that shopping experience, and they may not be comfortable with buying certain types of goods online. I mean, my kids are great in terms of buying clothes online, for example. I'm very happy with that. My wife, not so. She wants to see it, touch it, feel it, try it on, make sure she's happy with it before she makes the purchase. And so it's a very individual thing. But thinking overall, there has been an online shift.
Yeah, we've just got 30 seconds or so left, so I'll just I'll end on you, Loz. So, what would you like to see more from the government give you guidance moving forward and opening pubs? What do you want to hear tomorrow or today?
Well, I think we need something by before the end of the week, really. The amount of things revolved around this industry, are going to be crucial to building up the confidence on the high street and getting that experience back and whatever.